Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. I never thought the world would end on a Wednesday. At 6:47 a.m., I was sitting at my kitchen table, half awake, scraping the last bit of peanut butter onto a stale slice of toast. My phone buzzed with the morning weather alert. Mid-October in Spokane, Washington. 39 degrees Fahrenheit and clear skies. I had an hour before heading out to Eastern State Hospital in Medical Lake, where I worked night security. I was filling in for a guy who called in sick, his second time this month. I figured he just hated the night shifts. Can't blame him. That place always gave me the creeps. The first oddity was a text from my sister Karen, who lived in Coeur d'Alene. Just one line, "Turn on the news, now." I flipped to Creme 2. Static. I tried KHQ, same thing. Finally, I pulled up Twitter. The trending tags were things like hospital lockdown, Spokane Valley incident, and containment failure. But it wasn't until I clicked a shaky vertical phone video that it hit me like a brick to the chest. The footage showed a man, half naked, bleeding from his arms, chasing EMTs down a parking lot. It looked like the urgent care facility off Mission Avenue near Gonzaga. The caption said, "This guy bit a nurse and started attacking people like a wild animal. What is going on?" I'd seen meth heads and violent psych patients in my time, but this wasn't that. My mind was still grasping for a rational explanation when the power flickered. Once, then died. Lights out, router down, no Wi-Fi. My phone still had LTE, so I messaged Karen back. Nothing. By 7:11 a.m., sirens had become a constant background noise. Multiple fire engines. Then what sounded like police convoys. Helicopters buzzed low overhead. I live just off I-90, on the southern side of Spokane. My second-floor window gives a clear view of the freeway. That's when I saw it. Cars backed up in both directions. Some people had gotten out and were running. There was smoke in the distance, somewhere near the Sprague exit. I packed my Glock 19, 2 loaded mags, a flashlight, trauma kit, and an old Motorola radio I'd kept from my Army days. I still had a few active duty contacts through the National Guard Reserve list, and I thought maybe, they could explain what the hell was going on. I didn't realize how bad it was until I got into my 2012 Tacoma and tried to head west. Within 6 blocks, I saw 3 separate crashes. At the intersection of 29th and Regal, an ambulance was flipped onto its side, doors open, bloody smears trailing away into the bushes. A group of people stood around confused. One woman was crying. A guy was yelling something about, "They don't stop, they just keep coming." At 7:42 a.m., I picked up a short-range police transmission on my radio. Fragmented chatter. "Unit 6, we're being overwhelmed. Repeat, shots fired inside Sacred Heart. Multiple casualties. Possibly infected." I stopped breathing for a second. Infected. Not wounded, not aggressive. Infected. That word echoed in my brain like a drumbeat. I turned south, cutting through neighborhood streets. No destination in mind, just a way. But even the suburbs weren't safe. On 37th Avenue, I came across 2 people trying to pull a man off the hood of a Civic. The man was biting and clawing at the windshield like a wild dog. One of the bystanders had a tire iron. He swung once, hit the attacker in the ribs. It didn't stop him. The second swing connected with the side of the head, a crunch. The man went down hard but didn't stay down. I didn't stick around to see the rest. By 8:12 a.m., I reached the edge of Spokane's South Hill neighborhood. My plan, if you could call it that, was to reach the Finch Arboretum. There's a supply shed used by rangers, and the woods might offer better cover than city streets. But by then, nothing was simple. The roads were jammed with abandoned vehicles, and there were more people, if you can call them that, moving strangely, twitching, stumbling, sniffing the air like animals. Some moved in groups. Others just stood there, mouths slightly open, skin pale and blotchy. A few were worse, covered in blood, eyes milky, clothes torn like they'd been through a shredder. I parked in an alley and continued on foot. By 8:43 a.m., I reached the northern edge of the Arboretum. That's when I saw the first military Humvee. Burned out, still smoking. A soldier's body, still in full uniform, slumped against a tree. His M4 was gone. I crept up, checked his vest, 2 magazines left, no ID tags. A sidearm holster was empty. Nearby, I heard movement. I ducked behind a mossy retaining wall and waited. A man, middle-aged, maybe early 50s, came staggering through the brush. He wore a plaid shirt, jeans, and a tool belt. Looked like a local contractor. His mouth was open, breathing heavy. He was bleeding from the shoulder, but didn't seem to notice. "Sir?" I called out softly. He stopped, tilted his head like a confused dog. Then he charged. Fast. I didn't have time to aim properly, just instinct. 2 shots to the chest. He dropped for a second, then scrambled to his feet like a spider. I emptied the rest of the mag into his upper torso. Still didn't stop him. Only when I hit him once in the head did he drop and stay down. My hands were shaking so bad I nearly dropped the gun reloading. This wasn't drugs. Wasn't trauma-induced madness. These people were gone. Their bodies were still running, but their minds were something else. By 9:25 a.m., I had reached a ranger substation tucked behind the old park maintenance road. It was locked, but I forced it open. Inside, I found basic supplies: medkits, granola bars, an old break-action 12-gauge with 6 shells. Better than nothing. I stayed there for nearly an hour, watching from a slit in the boarded-up window. At 10:11 a.m., a girl showed up. Maybe 17 or 18, wearing a stained hoodie and jeans torn at the knees. She carried a baseball bat and was dragging a suitcase. She stood in front of the door for a full minute before she whispered, "Please, I'm not sick, I swear." Against every instinct I had, I let her in. Her name was Mia. Said she was a student at Lewis and Clark High. Her mom worked at the medical center and never came home last night. Mia said she saw one of her neighbors, an old retired dentist, rip his own wife apart with his bare hands in their kitchen. She told the story quietly, without crying or shaking. It wasn't numbness, not yet, more like a stunned kind of clarity, the kind that comes when you've run out of ways to rationalize what you've seen. She'd walked nearly 5 miles on foot to reach the Arboretum, dodging wrecked cars and what she kept calling those people. She never used the word dead, and I didn't correct her. She clutched that baseball bat like it was the last piece of the old world she could still hold on to. We stayed inside the ranger substation until just after noon. I reinforced the windows with an old shelving unit, flipped a desk onto its side in front of the door, and checked the roof access in case we needed an escape route. It was a flat metal surface with good visibility over the surrounding trail system and the edge of Sunset Highway. I had a pair of compact binoculars in my glove box kit and used them to scan the roads. What I saw didn't inspire confidence. Vehicles were piled along both lanes, many with their doors open, hoods still steaming, some with broken windows or blood on the sides. A city bus sat diagonally across an intersection near the curve of Government Way. Its windshield shattered, the driver's body half hanging out the side, unmoving. There were scattered figures along the sidewalks, people moving in erratic, twitchy patterns, or simply standing motionless. Whatever this was, it had reached beyond central Spokane, and fast. At 12:41 p.m., I picked up another transmission on the emergency frequency. FEMA confirmed the quarantine zone perimeter now extended from Fairchild AFB to the western edge of Spokane International Airport, with a soft cordon stretching down to airway heights. They were advising citizens to move on foot using non-primary routes and to avoid large gatherings. Something about unpredictable civilian behavior and localized contamination clusters. They never used the word zombie, not once, just like the media had stopped saying virus. Whatever it was spreading faster than anything I'd seen in war zones or biological drills. There was no central coordination, just layered bands of chaos trying to contain what couldn't be contained. Mia stayed quiet most of the time. I gave her a protein bar and filled a water bottle from the utility sink. She ate without talking. She kept glancing at the window like she expected someone, or something, to be staring back at her. I checked the signal again. It had stabilized. The Fairchild message was repeating on a loop now. A bad sign if you knew how these systems worked. It meant the station had been abandoned or automated. By 1:20 p.m., I made the decision to leave. We couldn't stay here. The substation had no real defenses, no supplies, and no visibility past the trees. It had only been a temporary shelter. I repacked the Glock and redistributed the ammo. I gave Mia a folding tactical knife with a locking serrated edge and showed her how to hold it. Her hands were steady, more than I expected. I asked her if she had anyone else, father, uncle, neighbor. She shook her head, slowly, eyes hollow. We left the Arboretum using a side trail that cut through the southern end of Highbridge Park. I figured we could make our way west towards Government Way, cutting through open space to stay off the roads. If we could avoid the densest parts of town, we might have a chance of getting within a few miles of Fairchild before sundown. From there, who knew? The plan wasn't to make it to the base exactly, but close enough to see if there was still a perimeter and some kind of processing station. The walk started quiet. Just wind in the trees and the occasional burst of birds startled from the undergrowth. But the deeper we got into the trail system, the more signs we saw. A torn backpack with blood on the straps, a toddler's shoe by the base of a tree, a woman's scarf wrapped around a broken branch, stained and fluttering. I kept the Glock low and ready. Mia walked behind me, the bat in one hand, the knife clipped to her hoodie pocket. We moved slow, not full crouch, but close enough to duck fast if needed. It was 2:07 p.m. when we saw the first group. 5 figures standing silently near a picnic table on the north side of Overlook Trail. At first they looked like hikers. They wore normal clothes, jeans, flannel, one in a Seahawks hoodie, but their posture was wrong. Slack, slouched, like puppets with cut strings. One of them was facing a tree, unmoving. Another had dried blood from chin to chest. No reaction when we stepped on a branch. No movement at all, until one of them, without turning, let out a wet, slow exhale, almost like a sigh. We didn't wait to see more. We veered off the trail and into the thickest cover we could find. By 2:30 p.m., we'd made it across the river bend and into the edges of Vinegar Flats, cutting through the old community garden plots. There were abandoned cars here too, scattered along the gravel access roads. One had its windows shattered inward, glass all over the seats, radio still hissing static. We passed a local greenhouse, door open, tools everywhere, rows of overturned seed trays. Someone had left in a hurry. I noticed the air had changed. There was a strange scent, coppery, but layered under something else, like rot that had been doused in disinfectant. Mia smelled it too. We stayed low, moving between old fruit trees and empty sheds, stepping only where we could see the ground. Every sound made us freeze. A rustling tarp, a door creaking in the wind. somewhere nearby a dog barked once, then stopped. By 3:04 p.m., we crossed into the western edge of Greenwood Road. From there, we had a straight, dangerous shot toward Hayford Road, the last real obstacle before Fairchild. The problem was the freeway, a major choke point with no guarantee of cover. I scanned the area through the binoculars and spotted movement on the overpass. 2 people walking, not stumbling, armed with what looked like hunting rifles. Survivors. I thought about calling out, but something stopped me. Instinct. We waited and watched. Sure enough, within minutes, we saw why the advice had been to trust no one. Another figure approached the pair, hands up, unarmed, clearly asking for help. One of the men waved him over. The second raised his weapon. As the stranger stepped forward, he was hit with a buttstock to the side of the head, dropped to his knees. The 2 armed men stripped his jacket, took his backpack, and left him bleeding on the roadside. They didn't kill him, just left him there. I turned to Mia. She didn't speak. She'd seen it too. We crossed under the overpass after they moved on, keeping to the tree line. We didn't speak for a long time. We passed another body, this one recent, still twitching. A bite wound deep in the forearm, eyes rolling. Mia froze. I told her not to look, to keep moving. She didn't argue. We didn't help him. I'm not proud of that. But we had to make it out. At 4:11 p.m., we reached the last stretch of Hayford Road before the base perimeter. That's when we heard the first chopper. It wasn't military, not a Black Hawk. This one sounded lighter, civilian class, maybe a modified Bell 407. It passed low overhead, banking sharply toward the industrial park near Craig Road. A signal flare arced into the sky near one of the warehouses. A red one. Not a distress call, more like a marker. Moments later, 3 more choppers followed. No markings I could see. That's when I realized there were other players in this game. Private contractors maybe, or something worse. We cut north, skirting the fenced-in property of an abandoned trailer storage lot. The sun was already low behind the tree line. My estimate put us less than a mile from the east gate of Fairchild. But as we rounded the bend near a fuel depot, everything fell apart. A siren screamed from a portable PA just up ahead. A pre-recorded voice on loop. Warning, containment breach, do not approach the perimeter. All entry points are under restriction. Then gunfire, rapid, controlled bursts, then screams. I pulled Mia behind a concrete barrier as a group of infected came sprinting around the lot. Not shambling, sprinting. 4 of them, maybe 5. A man in military fatigues fired from behind a sandbag position near a chain-link gate. His aim was good. 2 dropped, but 1 made it through and took him down in seconds. We crawled behind a storage crate and waited. The rest of the infected moved on, chasing noise elsewhere. I checked the soldier. Too late. Throat torn out. He had a suppressed M4, 2 mags, and a battered field radio. I took it all. His sidearm was gone, probably lost in the struggle. His uniform bore the patch of the 141st Air Refueling Wing, stationed out of Fairchild. Local. Maybe one of the last to hold the line when the base collapsed. His vest still had a crumpled checklist of names and codes. Field assignments, probably, but most of the writing had been smeared with blood. I left it. No use chasing ghosts. The sun was dropping fast, casting long, rust-colored shadows through the gaps in the fencing. We pushed on, using the edge of the abandoned processing zone for cover. The area was a mess. Rows of overturned decontamination tents, shattered floodlights, discarded PPE gear littering the ground like shredded paper. Some of the tents had bodies inside them, half covered with tarps, others buckled inwards from something that had clawed its way out. The perimeter security was gone, and whatever chain of command had once kept order here had vanished with it. I adjusted the sling on the M4 and checked the chamber, one round already in. The suppressor was functional, a crude wrap of polymer foam and carbon fiber casing. Homemade, but decent. I gave Mia the soldier's backup comms mic, a push-to-talk clipped to her sleeve so I could reach her if we got separated. She nodded and kept close, eyes always scanning. Her grip on the baseball bat was tighter now, but steadier, like she'd resigned herself to whatever this world had become. I didn't tell her that a bat wouldn't help if things went sideways, but she probably already knew. By 5:31 p.m., we reached the far west side of the compound, near the old water tower at the edge of the auxiliary fuel depot. From there, you could see the entire east gate of Fairchild, rows of Jersey barriers, scattered crates, and 2 gutted transport trucks smoldering in the open field. Beyond that, the base was quiet. Too quiet. No patrols, no lights, no signs of activity. The only motion came from a few infected stumbling along the tarmac, their heads tilting randomly like they were trying to listen through static. Whatever command post had operated here was long gone. We found temporary shelter in a field shed about 30 meters from the outer perimeter. Reinforced aluminum siding, no windows, one entrance. Inside it was dark and cramped, but defensible. I used a wrench from the maintenance locker to jam the door shut from the inside just in case. There was a faint chemical smell, maybe diesel or aviation-grade kerosene, but no signs of recent occupation. I pulled down a rack of tools and cleared a space in the corner while Mia crouched beside an overturned crate. I handed her one of the MREs from my bag. She ate in silence, chewing slowly, her eyes fixed on the wall like she wasn't really seeing it. We didn't talk. There wasn't much left to say. At 6:08 p.m., I turned on the field radio and scanned the channels again. Most were dead air or static, but on frequency 36.40, a new voice came through. Calm, deliberate, clipped with strain. "This is Station 9. All clear sectors are red. Repeat, sectors red. No further civilian processing. Secondary rally point moved to Ridgeview Reservoir. Mark Grid 47 QTK 133520. No airlift, foot evac only. Repeat, foot evac only." Then it looped again, word for word. I opened my map. Ridgeview Reservoir was on the far northern edge of Spokane, nearly 10 miles from our position. Suburban terrain, most of it uphill. Through town, through neighborhoods, through whatever was left of them. The message didn't say how many people had made it there. Didn't say if anyone was waiting. Only that it was the next fallback location. Mia looked at the map over my shoulder, tracing the route with her fingertip. "That far?" I nodded, calculating mentally. 10 miles on foot through infected zones, possible looters, no medevac, no overwatch. Maybe 3 hours if we moved fast, longer if we ran into trouble. We couldn't do it tonight. Not in the dark. The way things had gone, you didn't want to move after sundown unless you had no other option. We waited. The hours passed slowly. Outside, distant gunfire echoed through the air. Sharp cracks, sometimes in bursts, sometimes single shots spaced far apart. A sign that somewhere nearby, people were still fighting, still trying to hold on. I kept the rifle across my chest and let Mia get some rest. She curled up on her side, a bat laid across her knees. Her breathing stayed shallow but steady. I stayed awake, counting every sound outside. Metal clinking. A soft thud. A wheezing noise that passed near the door but never stopped. At 9:12 p.m., something slammed against the outer wall of the shed. Mia shot upright. I covered her mouth gently, raised a finger. We waited. Whatever it was didn't try the door. It just scraped along the siding for a few seconds, then wandered off into the dark. I watched the temperature gauge on my watch drop a full 3 degrees. Cold front was moving in. That might slow them down, but it wouldn't stop them. By 10:17 p.m., I decided we couldn't stay till dawn. The shed was too exposed, and every hour here meant more infected drifting in from the surrounding forest. Noise attracted them. Movement, even light from a distance. If someone fired a gun down the highway or crashed a car, they would converge. It wasn't organized, more like a chemical trigger. Some deep, broken reflex. But they moved toward stimulus, and they didn't stop once they locked on. We packed quickly, the M4, one mag chambered, one tucked into my vest. A single road flare, a map with the new grid marked, 2 remaining MREs, a portable flashlight with a red lens, and a fire starter. I had a multi-tool in my side pouch, a compass, and the last of my water. Mia carried the bat, the folding knife, and a compact first aid kit I assembled from the ranger station. Her phone was dead, but I let her clip the backup radio to her belt just in case. We left the shed under full darkness at 10:43 p.m., skirting along the drainage ditch behind the base's secondary fence line. The moon was out, but veiled behind low, fast-moving clouds. Our footsteps were almost silent on the damp gravel. I led us northeast toward the airport access road, figuring we could follow the edge of the cargo rail yard to reach Highway 2 without exposing ourselves too much. It was a gamble, but better than cutting straight through the city. We hadn't gone more than 200 yards when we saw a light. A flickering orange glow just over the tree line ahead. Not a street light, something burning. I crouched low, Mia behind me. I crept forward until I had line of sight. A mobile fuel station, or what was left of it, had gone up in flames. 2 bodies on the ground, one moving, the other long past that point. But it wasn't the infected that worried me this time. It was the people standing nearby. 3 of them, all armed. One had an AR-15 with a modified handguard and tactical light. Another held a pump shotgun, the kind you'd find in a home defense kit. The last had a machete and a pistol shoved into his belt. They were looting, talking softly among themselves, tossing bags into a shopping cart they'd somehow wheeled out this far. One of them was wearing body armor, law enforcement surplus maybe. The others looked like they'd come straight from a hunting trip. We backed away. Slowly, carefully. I didn't trust anyone anymore, not out here. Desperation changed people faster than infection did. It only took a moment of weakness, a hint that you had something they wanted, and they'd take it. Gunfire attracted the wrong kind of attention, but blades and silence were far more common now. By 11:34 p.m., we had reached the edge of the yard near Geiger Boulevard. From there, we could see the distant lights of Airway Heights blinking faintly, mostly red emergency strobes and the occasional flare. No real power, no sign of civilian traffic, just pockets of scattered light in a sea of darkness, like the dying nerves of a body in its final moments. It felt unreal, like looking at a city frozen in mid-collapse. You could tell people had tried to hold the line, tried to keep something going. A generator here, a flare there, but it was all makeshift, temporary, frantic, like plugging holes in a sinking ship with your bare hands. We stayed off the road, skirting north along the tree line past the old raceway, using a drainage path that cut behind an abandoned dealership. The place looked like it had been picked clean already. A few overturned vehicles, a burned-out cruiser with the doors still open, and rows of shattered windows. Mia moved silently behind me, her bat tucked into her pack now, the knife in her hand. She wasn't afraid anymore, not in the way she had been earlier. Something else had taken its place, a colder, quieter determination. She didn't ask questions. She didn't flinch at the sights anymore. She just watched, listened, and moved. We crossed Lawson Street and pushed through the overgrown access lane behind the Department of Corrections facility. The gates were wide open, no guards, no lights. A place like that should have been locked down first, but I guessed someone inside made a different call, or didn't have the luxury of making one at all. There were signs of struggle, spent casings near the outer fence, broken zip ties scattered in the mud, and 2 torn uniforms lying near the gate shack. I didn't stop to investigate. I didn't want to know what side they'd been on. By 12:12 a.m., we were north of the detention zone and back in residential terrain. Small homes, most with lights off, some with doors hanging open or windows broken. Alarms still rang in the distance, battery-powered or maybe solar backups, but they felt more like echoes than warnings now. Just noise that no one was left to hear. We kept to the side streets, following a winding route through alleys and narrow backyards. Occasionally, we saw signs of life, a candle flickering behind boarded glass, a figure moving between garages, but we didn't make contact. At this point, everyone was on their own frequency. Trust wasn't just dangerous, it was potentially lethal. Mia asked me once, quietly, how much further we had to go. I told her 5, maybe 6 miles to Ridgeview if we didn't get forced off-road. She didn't respond, just nodded, adjusted her pack and kept going. Her face was streaked with grime now, dried sweat caked under her eyes, her hair matted and tangled under her hood. But she hadn't complained once. Not about the cold, the silence, the fear, nothing. I wondered what she'd be like in a week if we made it that far. What kind of person this world was forging out of her. I didn't ask. I wasn't sure I wanted to know. By 12:44 a.m., we reached a choke point near the Spokane Tribe Casino. The entire area was lit by a ring of burning tires and a half-dozen cars pulled into a barricade formation. A group of men were clustered around a camp stove inside the ring. 5 of them, maybe 6, armed and armored with mismatched gear. One had night vision mounted to a ball cap with duct tape. Another wore a plate carrier over a Seahawks jersey. I saw 2 rifles, 1 pump-action shotgun, and several pistols. They didn't look like military or contractors, more like locals who'd seized control of whatever they could and decided to build their own checkpoint. We watched from behind a storage container across the lot. I didn't like it. The setup wasn't for defense. It was for control. They were stopping vehicles, what few were still trying to get through, and checking each one. Most were empty. A few had survivors. We saw a minivan roll up, its windshield already cracked, the side mirror hanging loose. The guards flagged it down. Words were exchanged. Then one of them opened the passenger door and pulled the driver out. Hard. We couldn't hear what was said, but the body language was enough. It wasn't a negotiation. It was a robbery. The others stripped supplies from the van while the driver knelt in the dirt, hands on his head. They didn't shoot him, but they didn't let him leave with the vehicle either. We circled wide around the checkpoint, staying in the shadows. At one point, we heard something overhead, a high whine, maybe a drone. I motioned for Mia to stop. We crouched under the eaves of an old utility shed while the noise passed overhead. I caught a glimpse of it in silhouette, quadcopter style, but larger than a hobby model. Probably modified for recon. No markings I could see. It hovered briefly, then veered south. If someone was still running surveillance, they weren't sharing their findings with the rest of us. We pushed north, crossing Highway 2 on foot through the thick tree line, crawling under a broken stretch of fence that led us into a residential subdivision near Grove Road. The place was too quiet. We saw signs of life, chalk messages on driveways, empty food tins stacked outside doorsteps, but no people, not even infected. Just silence. Not peaceful. The kind that makes you feel like you're being watched from every window. At 1:21 a.m., we reached the northern slope. Ridgeview was close now, the incline was steep, the trail overgrown with vines and frost, but we made the climb slowly, using a rusted-out chain-link fence for balance. As we reached the top, we finally saw it, the reservoir itself, backlit by moonlight, ringed with trees. No visible lights, no tents, no movement. Just a low hum coming from one of the utility panels, still running, probably solar-powered. We waited in the tree line for a full 10 minutes before moving in. No one stopped us, no voices, no flashlights. We crept to the service platform overlooking the water. That's where we found the signs. Someone had been there. A pile of ration crates, emptied and tossed. A few medical kits torn open. A used sat phone case, its device gone. Bloodstains near the edge of the platform, not fresh, but not old either. Bullet casings scattered along the gravel. Rifle caliber, 5.56 and .308. A single shoe, no bodies. I keyed the field radio and tried again, nothing but static. Mia walked the perimeter slowly, her shoulders tight. She didn't ask where the others had gone. She didn't need to. This had been a rally point, maybe even a rescue site at some point. But it had been overrun or abandoned like everything else. No flares, no signals, no sign of a continued presence. Just another failed safe zone. I looked at the tree line. The wind was rising, cold, carrying the faint, distant sound of something moving. Not close yet, but not far either. We couldn't stay here. I broke open one of the emptied crates and found a solar-powered distress beacon. Its power light still blinked, but the transmitter had been ripped from the base. Useless now. Nearby, I found a battered map marked with pen. It had several rally points circled, Ridgeview among them. Most were crossed out in red. Only one remained unchecked 9 Mile Falls northwest of the city, deeper into the wild terrain near the river. A long shot. Rough terrain. Zero guarantee. But better than waiting for the sound in the woods to find us. I packed the map, tied the flare to my pack strap and stood. Mia didn't say a word. She was already ready, already moving. She understood now. This wasn't about rescue. It was about staying mobile, staying ahead, and not letting hope become a trap. You couldn't wait for help that wasn't coming. You had to make your own route out, even if it meant walking through places no one had returned from. By 2:03 a.m., we were moving again. No real destination, no promise of safety, just a direction, and enough time before dawn to put more distance between us and what was coming behind. The first 12 hours were over. But this was just the beginning. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.